Ladies and gentlemen, morning. Can I please remind you to ensure mobile phones and other devices are on silent, that banners, etc. are not permitted, and members of the public are not allowed to address the meeting, to use the microphones which are available when addressing the meeting, and that you may be filmed or recorded during this meeting. Thank you. Please be upstanding for your chairman.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So let us take a moment just now to settle down to the business of the day. And as we gather from across the county, we give thanks once more for the opportunity to serve the whole county and its people. We seek the Lord's help to act with real character and with conviction, so that we will help us to listen to each other with understanding and with goodwill. He will help us to speak with charity and restraint. May the Lord give us the spirit of service and remind us that we are all stewards of his authority. May he guide us to be leaders his people need and deserve. Help us to see the humanity and dignity of those who disagree with us, and to treat all persons, no matter how weak or poor, with the reverence his creation deserves. And finally, Father, renew us with the strength of your presence and the joy of helping to build a community worthy of the human person. We ask this as your sons and daughters, confident in your goodness and love, through Christ our Lord. Amen. Enjoy the meeting.
Oh, sorry, I shout. Right, members, if we like to get on with the formal agenda, we've got quite a lot of business to get through today. Could we start off by asking you approve an amendment to the minutes on page 1, where it lists Councillor Mike Pringle as chairman. I didn't know I'd changed my name by a deed poll. So if we can approve the minutes with that minor amendment, all in favour? Clearly carried then. Apologies for absence. Councillor Barnfather, do you have any apologies?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I have apologies from Councillor Roger Jackson, other reasons, Councillor Neil Clark, medical illness, Councillor Eddie Cubley, other reasons, and Councillor Sinead Anderson, medical illness.
Thank you. Councillor Henry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have apology from Councillor Paul Henshaw, medical illness. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Deakin.
Thank you, Chair. I have no apologies for absence, but would like to welcome the 2 new members to the independent group.
I also have an apology for absence from Councillor Maureen Dobson for other reasons. As my Vice Chairman is not here today, and I am recovering from recent surgery, meaning I may need to step away from time to time, I would like to call for nominations to appoint a Vice Chairman for this meeting only. Do I have any nominations? Councillor Barnfather. I heard that.
Thank you, Chairman. It would save altering the minutes, of course, if we use Councillor Pringle for the next occasion. I'd like to propose Councillor Sue Saddington to be your nominated Vice Chairman for this meeting only. Councillor Saddington is a former chairman of this authority and has obviously displayed the necessary wit, wisdom and ability to be able to control this chamber in difficult times. And it may be useful to have her at your side during the course of this meeting. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Barnfather. Do we have any other nominations?
Yeah, I officially second that, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else? No? We need to put it to the vote as there's only one, but I think we have a show of hands. That's carried then. Would you like to come and take your place upon the dais, Sue?
Thank you, Mike.
Welcome. And agenda item 3 is to call upon Chris Barnfather to move the report on recognition of group and members of groups. Councillor Barnfather.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chairman. It is a requirement under the Local Government Committees and Political Groups regulations to notify full council of any changes to membership of political groups or naming of political groups. And the paper, as at page 27 of the bundle, identifies the fact that the previously named independent group, previously named Ashfield Independent Group, now wishes to be known as the Independent Alliance, along with additional members to that, I won't say group, to that alliance. Those two new members are Councillor Steve Carr and Councillor Francis Perdue-Horan. It does still leave two non-aligned members, independent members within this chamber, Councillor Maureen Dobson, who unfortunately is unable to be with us today, and Councillor Stephen Garner. The report sets out the percentages in relation to the group, and the recommendations are self-explanatory, Mr Chairman, to note the membership of the group and recognise it as such. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barnfather. Councillor Lawton, do you want to second the motion?
Yeah, I second the motion, Mr Chairman, and reserve my right to speak.
Thank you, Councillor Lawton. Anyone wish to speak on this item? No, I've had no indications, so... No? Right. Do you wish to say anything further, Councillor Barnfather? Or...
No, thank you, Chairman.
No, you don't want to exercise your right, Councillor Lawton? Right, we put the motion to the vote then. All those in favour? That's clearly carried. Agenda item 4, declarations of interest. If any councillor or officer has either a disclosable pecuniary interest or a private interest in any matter on the agenda, you should declare it now. Please raise your hand if you have an interest to declare, and when called to speak, you should state whether it is a disclosable pecuniary interest or a private interest and give brief details. Councillor Zarosny.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to take some advice from the monitoring officer about if we need to declare a personal interest in the exempt item, as many of us are colleagues with the post holder and some of us work with him in another place, so whether we need to declare a personal interest.
Would you mind if I answer that, Councillor Zadrosny? So we gave this some thought before the meeting, and we don't think you do. Thank you. Thank you for raising it.
Anyone else? No? In that case, we move on to Chairman's business. And I call upon Councillor Gordon Wheeler to introduce the Disability Confident Leader accreditation.
Thank you, Chairman. Okay, thank you. Chairman, I'm delighted to welcome Martin Harris behind you over there by the door. He's a co-chair of the Council's Disabled Employee Support Network. To the full Council today, welcome Martin and good morning to you. To receive the certificate of our Disability Confident Leader accreditation. And thank you, Daisy, as well for your help this morning. Disability Confidence Scheme replaced the two ticks positive about disability scheme several years ago, and is a nationally recognised accreditation which allows employers to demonstrate their commitment to becoming fully inclusive. The Council has moved to 3 levels of accreditation, from being Disability Confident Committed to becoming Disability Confident Employer, and now Disability Confident Leadership status. This allows the Council to promote itself as an employer who welcomes and supports existing and future employees with a disability into our workforce. It's particularly important during a period when many face significant challenges of securing suitably qualified and experienced candidates. Enables us to recruit from the widest range of talent, Mr. Chairman. It provides opportunity to those who can face the greatest challenge securing and maintaining employment, and be one of the ways we can deliver on various commitments set out in the Council plan, which you'll be debating later on today. Accreditation was achieved following submission of detailed evidence which demonstrates our ambition to be an inclusive employer, offering fully accessible job opportunities wherever possible. As I said before, I welcome Martin this morning. I'm very grateful to Martin and his colleagues from the Disabled Employees Support Network who provide helpful comments to strengthen our submission. The Personnel Committee recently agreed to ongoing actions to ensure the Council leader delivers genuine engagement and support for its future and also its current employees. Consider it important to demonstrate active commitment to becoming a recognised disability conflict leadership and to provide genuine community leadership in this area. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I could now present the award.
Thank you, Councillor Wheeler. I want to echo your thanks to Martin and his colleagues for their contribution to our accreditation as a disability confident leader, and extend my gratitude to all those who have played their part in achieving leader status. The Council always seeks to support and enable its workforce, and the achievement of disability confident leader accreditation demonstrates real commitment to our existing workforce. I appreciate all the work that has gone into this achievement to date, and I am sure that we will continue to build on what we already have in place to enable us to tap into wider resources at a time when it is recognised there are significant recruitment challenges across a number of sectors. Thank you and congratulations on this achievement, and I'd like to invite Martin and his colleagues to come forward with Councillor Wheeler so we can present the award. Thank you. I'd just like to give you a short update on what I've been up to since the last meeting. Despite the fact that I have been in hospital undergoing surgery and had to cancel some engagements and unfortunately missed Remembrance Day parade for the first time in over 40 years, which I was rather disappointed about, but these things do happen. And I'm sure it was well attended and served by other members, despite my not being here. So throughout the period since the last meeting, I've been meeting with the Wampanoag Indian delegation in Bassetlaw, and we had a very interesting day when they were showing us their traditional dances and building I can't remember what they call it now, but it was a way to, that's it, a traditional dwelling which was built out of, originally built out of buffalo hide and wood, but I think it was some synthetic material they used on this one. I attended a veterans do in Worksop at the Oasis Church. Tracy Piper and several others visited Retford for a Retford Live day in which they were encouraging people to take exercise, which was quite an interesting day. The Polish War Memorial celebration at Newark, Ashfield Civic Service, and the highlight of the last few months has been the opening of the Rosecliffe Spencer Primary Academy in Edwalton, which was an excellent day, a fabulous school, and all the kids were absolutely splendid and showed us around the school and were great ambassadors for the school. Rushcliffe Civic Service, the Roosevelt Scholars came to County Hall, and I had a meeting with the High Sheriff. That is the summary of my activity over the last couple of months, but I'd like to remind members that on December the 3rd that we have the tree lighting ceremony, which takes place from 4:30. May be advisable to get here a little earlier than 4:30, but I'm looking forward to seeing as many of you there as can make it. I have organised some of the special schools in the area to come and sing some carols for us, along with some other schools. So it should be a splendid occasion. And just a reminder, those of you that managed to miss Daisy on the way in, that we are having the Super Christmas draw again this year. And there are some tremendous prizes, including a laptop, which has been given to us by John Lewis, I believe. Tickets are £1. And those of you that haven't bought tickets, if you make sure that you get them on the way out, rather than pass a bucket round the chamber, we thought it was better that we collected it off people on the way in. But those of you that haven't got tickets, please make sure that you see Daisy before you leave and purchase at least 5 at £1 each, I would have thought. But I only believe in silent collections. That concludes the update. I just have one item that I want to bring to members' attention, and that we have an exempt report which is at the end of the agenda today. But to ensure this matter is dealt with today, as it needs to be dealt with today, I have decided to move items 13 and 14 up the agenda to after item 10. Once these items have concluded, we will return to the public session and continue with the agenda until 5:30. We will have a 1-hour lunch break at approximately 12:30 today, depending on how the business goes. Agenda item 6 then, constituency issues. And I remind people that they have up to 3 minutes and that there is a time limit of 15 minutes for the item on the agenda. And we have 5 speeches indicated today. So I call upon Councillor Jason Drozny to present his issue about public transport in Nashfield.
Thank you, Chairman. I appreciate there are a number of questions on the same item, but members will know that my Ashfields division covers part of Sutton in Ashfield and Kirkby in Ashfield. Public transport has been a hot topic, particularly since the 18th of November, where the council leader and I had a conversation that morning about the integrated rail plan coming out. Kirkby in Ashfield station is a supposed hub for one of the new interchanges for the Maid Marian line, and on the 18th of November, we waited with bated breath for the announcement. Sadly, as we all know, the work didn't come through to Towton. HS2 wasn't extended to Towton. Ben and I had a pretty honest chat on the phone about an hour before the announcement was made, and then a more furious WhatsApp discussion a few hours later when the detail of what was coming out of the IRP was scant about the Maid Marian line. And in fact, it's only mentioned briefly on page 82, where where it talks about we'll look to future exploit the Maid Marian line extending through the old mineral line through Ilkeston, and interchange at Kirkby and Ashfield for my local residents. Councillor Bradley then went and asked a question of Grant Shapps in Parliament that afternoon, which didn't allay any of my fears about the Restoring Your Railways bid, which formed part of the IRP, about some concrete evidence of the infrastructure needed for Kirkby and Ashfield to invest in that station and the Maid Marian line. And I see further that there was a statement or social media post about a statement from Mr. Gove about the same thing. However, Mr. Chairman, I've now spoken to a number of officers, officials at the Department for Transport who tell me that the Restoring Your Railways bid, which is a separate piece of work to the IRP, has not even been presented to ministers, and therefore no decision's been made. And in fact, the public-private bid that would need to be made to invest in Towton actually weakens the Maid Marian bid, because that needs to happen for it to be an interchange. Therefore, there's a huge uncertainty, and I'm pleased you're smiling, because I guess in the questions later you're going to take the opportunity to allay my fears. I live a 10-minute walk away from that station. It would be a massive
You have 30 seconds left.
A massive economic boon for my residents to be able to use it. There is a huge uncertainty in the communications that's come from this place and the government about those guarantees. Mr. Chairman, I just want to put a pin in this right now, that residents in Ashfield need those assurances and they deserve the economic benefits. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Josey. I call upon Councillor Helen Ann Smith to talk about road safety on the Healeswood estate in Skegby.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. As members and officers across this council will know that I've had concerns about road safety in Sutton North for quite a few years now. But this morning I want to talk specifically about the Healeswood estate in Skegby, which is close to Sutton and Ashfield. This morning, Mr Chairman, a man lies in a coma. His name's Brian. He's 60 years old, and the family say the prognosis isn't good. Last week he was hit by a car on Beach Street in Skegby whilst walking his dog. And I'm sure the thoughts of this whole family go out to his friends and family and himself. I know the council will be discussing road safety later on today, and I fully support moves to reduce the speed limit on estates like the Healeswood estate. Just to give you some background, Mr Chairman, the Healeswood estate is mainly council and former council housing. If you're going to design a racetrack, you would design it like areas of the Healeswood estate. You drive from Healeswood Street onto the Crescent, onto Beach Street, Hazel Street, Oak Street, back onto Healeswood Street and finish on Barker Avenue. There's no speed humps and people drive with impunity. Also on the estate, Mr Chairman, we've got 2 primary schools, a Sure Start centre and access to a very popular park called Healeswood Rec. Mr Chairman, I just wanted to flag this today because it is a big issue in my area at the moment, and I will be asking via the Vice Chairman of the Transport and Environment Committee later in this meeting to come to the Healeswood estate and see the problem for himself firsthand. Thank you, Mr Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor John Wilmot, road safety in Hucknall.
Thank you, Chairman, for allowing me to speak on this very important issue. May I first of all take this opportunity of sending my condolences to the family who lost their precious family member in an Annesley Road car accident in Hucknall a few days ago. I know it must be a traumatic experience, and I know there is a motion on the agenda to discuss a possible 20 miles an hour speed limit, but as we might not get that far in the agenda, I'm going to talk about it now. Not a day goes by that a constituent does not complain about speeding cars in my area in Hucknall, whether it be on the roads leading to the town centre, Annesley Road, a real rat run and used by the boy racers, and Torquard Way, or on the roads leading into the town, including Papawick Lane, Limby Road and Waterloo Road. And talking of Waterloo Road, I'm sure I was told a serious collision took place in the last 48 hours in that area, and I saw the debris being taken away on a lorry only yesterday. There are also complaints from Papawick Green and Vaughan Estate on roads that leading to our schools. That is putting children's lives at serious risk. There are constant complaints about inconsiderate car owners speeding or overtaking in an appropriate way. Now, I know as well as anyone else, it is a difficult situation to address, but that is why I feel 20 is plenty could make a difference. It needs to be discussed with the police, the fire service, the county and district councils, and all being involved, especially in Hucknall, where more house building is proposed in an area that vehicle congestion is already a problem. I must also bring to the problem of illegal car parking in Hucknall Town Centre. With the introduction of many more takeaways in Hucknall, the evenings in the High Street and surrounding areas and the pedestrianised areas become a public car park on double yellow lines and at the side of traffic lights, putting pedestrians at risk. It does require some sort of enforcement. Finally, the land at the side of Titchfield Street in Hucknall, the unkept piece of land which I was told by county council officers is under district ownership. On visiting the land registry, I find it is not true. It is still owned by the county council. All I want is the area to be made respectable along with the vegetation. And the derelict building site of the wall, the side of the Baker Lane Brook being made to look as if someone does own it.
30 seconds, Councillor.
I try and keep well, we all try and keep our town clean and tidy and find other organisations letting us down. It is infuriating on that situation, and I just hope that someone will take some notice of what I've thought about. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Wilmot. Councillor Tom Hollis, recycling issues.
Thank you, Chair. And just briefly before I begin, I'd just like to welcome Francis and Steve to the independent group. I would respectfully ask we don't get any more members because my seat seems to be moving steadily to the right here, and I might end up, I think, where Councillor Allen is by the end of the term if we carry
Councillor,
on.
you're wasting your 3 minutes
I've got
on
my
an
3
issue
minutes,
that
I'll
is
take
not,
them.
of which
And
you
also,
were
Chairman,
asked to
just
stand
my
up
second
for.
my second thing was just to thank you for coming to Ashfield for the civic service. It was great to see you there, and hopefully welcome you again shortly. But I rise today to speak on behalf of residents in my division who are keen recyclers. Ashfield Council, of course, collects the waste recycling bins, and Veolia provide the publications for what can go in them on behalf of the County Council. We had a keen dialogue with my residents talking about what can go in our bins, and of course we've played a proactive role in making sure the schools are aware and children take that back to the families. However, we had a consultation with Veolia, something that's in their contract, to make sure that they recycle what we expect them to, and this is done in a review. Staff from Ashfield Council attended on behalf of residents in my division and all members in this chamber to say, are we going to have any changes? They had a really comprehensive review, which then led to them only including bottle tops to go into the bins. And compared to other areas, residents in my division are extremely frustrated that 10% of the things that go into the bins in Ashfield, the bins across the county, is contaminated. Not because people are doing anything ridiculous. We're putting cardboard pizza boxes in. We're putting shredded paper in. Things that you'd expect to be there. Why aren't Veolia taking the concern of our waste distributors from all districts and boroughs in this place seriously, and allowing residents in my division and others to recycle at the levels they expect? And if Veolia aren't going to listen to residents in my division who want to do the right thing, why aren't they providing adequate publication of what can go in the recycle bins, so then at least people know that they are doing the correct act? So I've already spoken to the Chairman of Highways about this, who assures me that he's going to take personal action with Veolia, but I really encourage, and the reason I've spoken today more than anything is we want to be recycling at the best rate, not contaminating what's in there, because of course that means it all gets thrown out. And if well-meaning residents don't know the right thing to do,
30 seconds, Councillor.
We're in a mess. So I would encourage the council to take pressure on Veolia, at least carry out the publication, but more importantly, if they're going to waste everybody's time just to do a token gesture of including bottle tops, you know, I'd question what the point of the review is. So I'd hope the leader, the chairman of the Highways Committee and the vice chairmen of the committee for that matter will hold Veolia to account and include opposition members in that where possible. But thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Hollis. Councillor David Martin on the impact of the Maid Marian line for Selston.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak about this. Back in 2016, as a mere parish councillor, I took the opportunity to visit a summit in Loughborough chaired by Nicky Morgan, another Conservative MP. Connectivity was the word of the day, if only we had some. Now, in reality, across Selston Parish, we were in the main indifferent to HS2 because it was set to travel through the parish along the far side of the motorway. Apart from the initial construction disruption, we would have been left just watching it sailing by on a regular basis without any benefit because we still had no connectivity. So it kind of defeated the whole object of the initial concept to the residents of Selston Parish and the majority of residents across the whole of Ashfield. That was, of course, until we came up with our own aspirational plan back in 2016 to reopen the Maid Marian line. Currently a former mineral line built to serve the coal pits. It's still fully functional, operational line, and all it needs is a station for trains to stop at so people can actually use it. The benefits for the whole of North Nottinghamshire would be huge. It would be hugely beneficial from Worksop through to Mansfield, Sutton, Kirkby and Selston, because connectivity is all we really need. So what we really need is certainty that it will go ahead, because currently it isn't mentioned in the integrated rail plan, but all of our MPs are saying it is. So all we're asking for is the support, because the economic benefits to our residents across the whole of Selston Parish, right up to Worksop, who will be able to get to Parkway, because that's where it's going to be, would be hugely beneficial. So that's all we're asking for, support and clarity on direction. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. We'll move on then to presentation of petitions, and I have been notified of 5 petitions by the deadline. Can I remind members that you have 1 minute and the time limit for the whole item is 15 minutes. So I call upon Councillor Pauline Allen to present a petition on footpath alongside Mapley Plains.
Thank you, Chairman. I rise to present this petition on behalf of ramblers and local residents at the Mapley top end of Arnold. They have already a sort of outline of a path, and they would like to maintain or have maintained a short section of this which leads from Mapley top near the pub, good place to start I think, and that will join up with other footpaths that are further on. There seems to be a gap in the provision there, and the traffic along Mapley top, as many will know, is rather fast, and there's no speed limit whatsoever. So it would be a good idea if residents had a safe place to walk from one end to the other. Also, the advent of more housing at the top there means that this path is more likely to be used than it has been in the past. Thank you.
Thank you.
Call upon Councillor Gordon Wheeler, who has 2 petitions to present. One for environmental improvements on Wilford Field, and the other one is a pedestrian crossing in the vicinity of Dorset Restaurant, Compton Acres. Councillor Wheeler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll do them in reverse order. That's okay with you?
No.
You've set the petitions about provision of pedestrian crossing in the vicinity of Compton Acres. The fact I'm presenting a petition this morning is thanks to Jessica up there. Jessica's 13. She's from West Bridgeford School, and when the schools were closed, Jessica went around the community and collected petition signatures for this petition. She got to 138, which is a great figure. I'm sure you'd agree with me this morning. Thank you, Jessica, once more. It's also on my schemes list as well for this year, so hopefully a combination of both these things will see a crossing where it is badly needed. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Should I do the second one as well?
Yeah, do them both and then bring them up together. Thank you.
The second petition, as you've just said, Mr. Chairman, calls for a grassy area for local children to play football, whatever else they want to do on it. It's got 119 signatures, put together quite quickly. It's on land owned by the County Council, poor quality land, I hasten to add. I hope that the County Council will recognise the need within the community for such a facility. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll bring both petitions up to you now.
Thank you, Councillor Wheeler. I call upon Councillor Daniel Williamson, who has a request in a petition to make Reform Street and Cuts Row in Kirkby into a one-way street.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I rise to present the petition, as you just said, on behalf of the residents of Reform Street and Cuts Row in Annesley Woodhouse to impose a new one-way traffic system on these streets. For those of you that don't know the area, you will all have a street like Reform Street and Cuts Row in your own divisions. There's no more than 20 houses across the 2 streets, and the road that runs along them is very much a single width road. We'd struggle to fit one of those desks across it lengthways. The residents are permanently in fear of having their children hit by cars speeding up from the wrong way from a blind corner off a forest road, or from being stuck inside their house for many, many emergencies due to blockages from trucks, from vans, from cars, from all sorts of traffic coming from both ends of these streets and blocking them off. In this council, we make decisions on a lot of huge items, a lot of massive items for the benefits of the residents across Nottinghamshire. This is a very small item, but I hope yourself and I hope the committees will look upon it favourably for the 30 or so residents that do live on these streets and are having their lives blighted by having cars come from both ways. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Williamson. Call upon Councillor John Clark, who has a petition to request and install a raised zebra crossing on Digby Avenue.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. This is from Emma Willis Crowther, petition to Nottinghamshire County Council to install a raised zebra crossing on Digby Avenue. And anybody that knows that Digby Avenue in Mapley will know that it's a racetrack. The idiots drive down there, ridiculous speed. There is a special school on one side, a very good special school, and a very good junior school and infant school the other side. This is not just a petition. This is raised, particularly Emma, is a 4-year-old child. She's been the driver behind this. Quite a character when you meet her, but she's quite, quite forthright. But it's also a cross-party, cross-generation, because our local MP, Tom Randall, Michelle Welsh is my colleague on Arnold South, and all the Gedling councils are in support of this. So I'd ask, you look at it favourably. I know things have to go into budgets, but this road is in serious need of some traffic calming, not just there, but the pedestrian crossing would help significantly. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clark.
Cheers, John.
Can I ask that Council resolve that the petitions be referred to the appropriate committees for consideration and a report brought back to the Council in due course in accordance with standing orders? All in favour? Yes. Agenda item 7B, response to petitions presented to the Chairman of the County Council. I move that the content of the report and the actions approved be noted, and is that agreed? Show of hands. Thank you. Agenda item 8, membership of committees. I call upon Councillor Chris Barnfather, who will move the recommendations in the report.
Thank you, Chairman. We've already dealt with recognition of group and membership at item 3. Agenda item 8 refers to the fact that the Council is under a duty to review the allocation of committee seats to political groups where there is a change to the membership of those groups. The allocation of seats should be based on overall seat numbers rather than on individual committee numbers, and obviously should be representative of the political balance as alluded to in agenda item 3. The Fire Authority is not affected by the changes that are recommended in this paper, and if you turn to page 40 of the bundle, you'll see that the recommendation is that the Council should confirm the revised allocation of committee seats as set out in Appendix A, and I formally move the motion. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Barnfather. Councillor Bruce Lawton, I call upon you to second the motion.
Yes, thank you very much, Chairman. I second the motion and reserve my right to speak.
Thank you, Councillor Lawton. Anyone wish to speak on the item? No one has indicated. Chair, do either a mover or seconder want to exercise their right to reply or speak? Thank you. Can I put the motion to the vote then? All in favour? That is clearly carried. Agenda item 9. It's the decision to opt into the National Scheme for Audit Appointment. And I call upon Councillor Philip Owen to move the recommendations of the report.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. The County Council, of course, is required to appoint an external auditor to audit its books, and currently the present auditors are going to end their period of auditing for us under the contract that has been let to them shortly, and so we are required to appoint new auditors, or at least to go out to tender for new auditors for the financial year starting 2023 and 24, and that will be for a 5-year period. At the last meeting of the Governance and Ethics Committee, we considered the possible ways in which that could be done, and they are set out under paragraph 2 of the report on page 43 of this booklet. Unanimously, the Governance and Ethics Committee came to the conclusion that bullet point 3, the opt-in to the National Auditor Appointment Scheme administered by a body designated by the Secretary of State, be the preferred method, which in fact is the way that it's been done for the past few years. So I'm happy to move the recommendation that's set out on page 46 of this booklet, that we go down that route as a county council, and I hope the county council members agree with that suggestion. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. I call upon Councillor Nigel Moxon to second the motion.
Hi, Mr. Chairman, I'll formally second that motion and reserve my right to speak.
Thank you, Councillor Moxon. Anybody wish to speak on the item? No, no indication, so I move to the vote then. Show of hands, all those in favour? That is clearly carried. Agenda item 10 is the Nottinghamshire Plan 21 to 31, and I call upon Councillor Ben Bradley MP, who will move the recommendations in the report.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, everybody. As members will have read, this report seeks the Council's approval for our Council Plan, which lays out a 9-point plan for this administration and Council over the next 4 and then 10 years. You can find the plan supporting information in the appendices with a huge amount of detail behind each of those 9 ambitions and priorities. You'll see that it's been shaped by the comments and the views of Nottinghamshire residents following our big survey in the summer. We said all the way through that process throughout the summer that we intended to make full use of the outcomes of that consultation, to understand the key priorities of local people, and to ensure that those priorities flowed through this document, which will be a reference point for all of our decisions and communications over the coming years. I hope that our staff across the council will also see their work and their department in the plan, and that their own roles will be able to be linked back to that plan and to the delivery of those key priorities. It's heartening too in that consultation to see that many of the key themes that emerged over the summer reflected the work we're already doing in this authority and mirrored much of what we as administration had put forward following the election. That includes things like obviously sorting our highways, and members will note the review has just concluded with 50 recommendations being taken forward to help deliver on that. Like skills and jobs, where obviously we've discussed all of the things we want to do around Freeport, the Development Corporation, job opportunities at Totem, the skills opportunities from devolution. They prioritise health, understandably, given the challenges of the last few years. And we're working with the integrated care system through our public health services. We're holding our partners to account on their delivery. There's a lot going on in that space too. There are other examples. It's really positive that we are already doing what we are already doing already meets with so many of the expectations of what residents have told us they want to see. The Nottinghamshire Plan is a new, ambitious plan for the County Council, which sets out our strategic 10-year vision for a healthy, prosperous and greener future for everybody in Nottinghamshire. That means we'll focus on improving health and well-being in our communities, growing our economy, improving living standards, reducing the county's impact on the environment, and helping everyone access the best that Nottinghamshire has to offer. We've broken that vision down into 9 ambitions for Nottinghamshire, which will act as the framework for all council activity during the life of the plan. Unlike in previous years, this plan won't just be a document sat on a shelf or even just available in a few select locations, read by very few. This is an interactive and live document that will be available online for all to see and to scrutinise. I understand it goes live this afternoon. We'll be giving it a big push and a launch to make residents aware, and having been able to click through it and look over it in recent days, I'm really proud of the work that's been done. I think it's been well led, both by the officers and by Councillor Lawton and others, and I think the outcomes give a really positive sense of what it is we're trying to achieve as an authority and as a county. It will be updated as we go along, and already we can update from saying we will publish recommendations about improving our highways to now laying out and explaining our plans, and we'll continue in that vein as we move forward. Residents should feel that they can get the latest situation, they can get a sense of our purpose and direction from that website and from the plan. It's interactive with video content and with the ability to pick the themes and areas that you want to drill down into to give a sense of where we're at and what we're trying to achieve through our transformation plans across frontline services, for example, where demand continues to rise and where the way that we work needs to change. Also has our wider economic priorities, job creation and the regional work that we're doing woven through it. I know colleagues will wish to speak further. Councillor Lawton will want to share his thoughts, but personally, as I've said, I think this is an excellent piece of work. I'm keen to see it act as the focal point for all of our work in terms of how we plan for the future, in terms of what and how we communicate with our residents, and also for us to question and investigate whether the actions and decisions that we take reflect the key priorities in our plan at each turn. I'd like to thank those residents who took part in the consultation, which has been really successful and has helped to shape this document. I'd like to thank all the councillors who fed in and took part in shaping this also, and to Councillor Lawton for steering it, and of course those officers who have put this together, both directly tasked with delivering it and those from across every area and department of the council who have fed in the relevant parts of their own remit and services. And as I said earlier, I hope that they can see the reflection of that within the document. The next task, of course, is to ensure that it works and it's used effectively and that our engagement with residents continues to grow in scale and pace as we go forward. Those members who've been part of these conversations in Policy Committee, for example, will know that we constantly drive for that ambition to keep having a two-way conversation with residents, to keep growing that audience and that conversation, and we'll endeavour to do that as we go forward. But for today, Mr Chairman, I'd like to present this report to the Council and recommend that we approve and adopt the Council plan.
Thank you, Councillor Bradley. Call upon Councillor Bruce Lawton to second the motion.
Thank you very much, Mr Chairman. I'd like to second the motion and speak straight away. This plan has been delivered after one of the most catastrophic events that this country and the world has come across since really the Second World War. And so it is inevitable that written throughout the whole of the plan are the effects of COVID on our residents and what they expect of us. And that is one of the main reasons why it is so important that we listen very carefully to what those residents have got to say to us, because they know best as far as what the impact it has had on their families, their jobs and their general livelihood. And so what we've tried to do with this plan is attempt to listen as much as we possibly can. So on the back of that, I have a number of thanks really to hand out. One, I'd just like to thank Katrina, who has been the mainstay of the bureaucracy, so all of the work that has been going on in the background of the plan has effectively done a lot of the necessary work over the Big Knots survey. So what we've done is we've gone out to the community and talked to them through the Big Knots survey. Now, we would have liked more. There is no doubt we would have liked more, but we felt it was an extremely healthy response to this council. And it was a learning curve to us, and we built up a toolkit as part and parcel of it to carry on the process and build on the work that we have been doing. I think it's absolutely important that this council does not just isolate and throw away the information that we are gathering and the skills that we have developed over the last few months, and that we continue to use those skills to listen to the people of Nottinghamshire. It's quite interesting actually, because we've just been down with Kate and Ben and the Chief Executive down to the CCN conference down in Marlow. And that's what they were all talking about, was talking about councils developing ways of talking to their electorate and ensuring that they were delivering for those very electorate. And that we are ahead of the curve as far as many of those councils are concerned. And for that, I applaud the leadership of the Chief Executive and his team for listening and really helping us deliver that. Secondly, I'd like to thank the members of my group who were involved closely with the plan. We selected 6 people, some senior politicians and some new on-the-block politicians, because we wanted to listen to fresh ideas and fresh views to feed into the plan. And thirdly, I'd like to thank the opposition members actually that got involved. You know, you helped with the Big Not survey. We tried to feed information through to you as much as we possibly can what was going to be in the plan, and to ensure that you could buy into it and look at it and actually use the document. And the last person I'd like to thank was Derek, who was the lead officer as far as the team was concerned. He worked extremely hard on this programme, and it was his leadership that I relied on through the whole of the process. So I think it's just incumbent on me to I've been around a bit and I've seen a few plans come in front of this council, and so it was an aim of mine to actually make it not same as, because I didn't want same as. I wanted something that was actually going to be of benefit to us and not be a document that was just thrown in one corner. No, okay, the next 4 years are up, we've got to do another one, you know. So we didn't want that. To happen. So we based the documentation and the values and the actual core of the plan on what the people of Nottinghamshire were telling us. And those were where the 9 points came from. They didn't come from me as a politician, they came from the people of Nottinghamshire. They were the ones that developed this plan. And they were the ones that were telling us, do it long term, do it 10 years, get out there, make it aspirational. And that's why Ben in his preamble is talking about the plan is over, it is 4 years, but it has a 10-year aim, a 10-year aspiration written within it. And it has been an interesting, a very interesting journey. But also, what we have done within the plan is we've made it so that, you know, the committee chairs and the new cabinet members, they will have to, not have to, but they will be encouraged to actually look at the plan before they come up with policies and ideas that they're putting in front of this council. So it feeds in to what the people of Nottinghamshire are telling us to do. And one of the other major areas within the plan is health. And I'm not going to tread on John's toes because John's going to say a few words. But health has affected us all. It has affected us all throughout COVID. Many of us have been in vaccination centres and whatever else throughout the last few months. And it is absolutely essential that the plan deals with that. And John is going to say a few words. So there were 3 main streams that came out of it, and you will picked up as part of the plan. One was the effect of COVID, the other was transport, and the last one was environment. And those are the 3 main streams that are written within the plan. So it was interesting that other councils are trying to follow the same route as we're going to do, and we are going to do more of the same, and we are not going to leave this on a dusty shelf. This is going to be a living document we're all going to be using and referring to, and is worthwhile us producing as a council to make things better for the residents of Nottinghamshire. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Lawton. Councillor Creamer has indicated he wishes to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Actually welcome the document and the framework. It's good to have a framework to work around, even if we actually don't necessarily agree on absolutely everything as it goes through. So yes, absolutely welcome a framework, and it will actually help us in the chamber, I'm sure. But just a couple of questions. On the white pages 11, the plan will be supported annual delivery plans and set out. Will there be, this a question, will there actually be a feedback annually of actually how it's progressed in that year? Because it'll be difficult of a short period. I know every committee or every cabinet member will have their say and refer to it over the year, but will there be an actual feedback for this council chamber? And if we go to the to item 7, in ambition 7, sorry, on the yellow pages, page 26 or 80, depending if you're reading it on a laptop, the next 4 years. And I'm just wondering exactly how this plan is going to affect now, for the simple reason that HS2 is now not coming to Towton, but it is within the ambitions will ensure residents and businesses benefit from major infrastructure projects. These include HS2 to connect Nottinghamshire with major UK cities. I'm hoping we're still going to press for that we want major cities north as well as south. I know it's coming to actually East Midlands Parkway, but not going to go to Towton. And on the very next bit, this is why it's going to be a working document, why we're going to talk and argue with various bits, is the Towton Innovations Campus. Do we actually know what our policy on that is going to be? Because that is linked into HS2 going to Towton. So it's a working document. It literally needs working right now. So I'm just wondering what your ideas, plans, updates, whatever are on that. But in general, welcome the plan. It's good to have a matrix to work around that we can debate, argue, change, hopefully, and eventually get things done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Creamer. Councillor John Doddy.
Thank you very much indeed, Chair. I welcome the 10-year plan, and it's no surprise how very closely it mimics the work over the last number of years of the Health and Wellbeing Board itself. It could almost be a subgroup of my committee, the Health and Wellbeing Board. It's very complementary indeed, and health has come to the forefront there in making people's lives better and improving the health of the people of Nottinghamshire, which is top of all of our lists. We've been through, as Bruce said, a couple of years where people have watched their relatives die in isolation in nursing homes. They've watched their spouses give birth on their own in hospitals. They've watched people die and not been able to go to the funerals. They've watched their children not being able to go to school, sit in bedrooms, get depressed, self-harm. They've watched the amount of alcoholism and death skyrocket, overdoses skyrocket, and they've been through something that's taught them one salient point, that what use is all of it if you haven't got health and happiness and family. And that pervades through the whole of this document, is saying how important it is for the residents to be happy and to be healthy. As it happens, complementary, we in the Health and Wellbeing Board are embarked on a roadshow where we're going out to devise a strategy to bring that very happiness, to bring that very health, to bring that healthy life expectancy to those people, and we will be delivering those results back to the leader and to yourselves on a yearly basis in what we achieve as we go out to do this. I'm going to admit failure to begin with, because we in the Health and Wellbeing Board are statutorily responsible for extending the life expectancy of the people of Nottingham, and for the first time in 100 years people are actually living less long. So we've lost a year due to the excess deaths brought about through COVID. What we can do and what we aim to do is to increase the healthy life expectancy. So if a woman lives to 81 and a man lives to 79, 20 years before they die, they start to get ill. And why do they start to get ill? Something that we'll be coming on to in a major way this afternoon: nutrition, obesity, blood pressure problems, heart attacks, strokes, diabetes and cancer. And that is the area, that 20 years that we will be intervening, and it's beautiful to see it front and foremost of our plan over the next 10 years. We haven't just started, we're not starting from scratch. We've already looked at mental health and putting mental health on a par with physical health. No health without mental health. But that was Enoch Powell started that back in the 1960s. So we've been saying that for 50 years. So we've come up with a mental health concordat and we've refreshed it this year. We're going to be going out on the roadshow asking people, what do you want to extend your life? We're going to be looking at the top 3. Smoking has never been more important. It recommends smoking itself. It cuts your life by 50% of the inequalities in life. So if you live 10 years less in Ashfield than you do in Rushcliffe, 50%, 5 years of that is solely down to smoking. Then you add in nutrition, which is another 15 or 20%. So this paper will help us deal with the amazing health inequalities that live in our society. So I welcome it. We're going out on the roadshow. We're in Beeston Friday, 4 to 5 at the Beeston Library. I would invite all of you to be there. The biggest take-up of our roadshow was Bassett Law. So we're going up to Retford to the town hall, and there's been enormous enthusiasm up there. I can see Sheila shaking her head. We'll probably have to get the police around to limit the numbers that are allowed in. So I think it's a fantastic paper. I welcome it. Health at the front and foremost, because that's what every single one of your residents wants, and we'll be delivering it through the Health and Wellbeing Strategy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Doddy. Councillor Lee Walters.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm interested by this report. It does list a number of ambitions as a high-level report. However, there are no time-costed targeted budgets or clear delivery dates as yet, supposedly as it is a working document. I welcome that on page 91 of the pack or page 37 of the report, that it acknowledges that some areas are the most deprived in England, particularly in Mansfield and Ashfield district, with 31 neighbourhoods falling within the nation's most deprived 10%. I would like to specifically know how the plan will target deprivation across Ashfield and Hucknall, and if Hucknall will benefit from levelling up. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Walters. Councillor Penny Gowland.
Thank you. I'd like to raise 2 matters. First of all, I'd like to thank... Sorry. First of all, I'd like to... Sorry. I've got one drive coming up. Okay. First of all, I'd like to thank the Council for including domestic abuse in here. I'd like to thank the Council for participating in Orange Nottingham tonight, lighting this building orange to raise awareness of domestic abuse. And I was pleased to meet the officers responsible for this part of the agenda today outside. And secondly, I'd like to bring up the matter of public transport in this report. It's pleased to see the plan to make buses more accessible, but I hope this effectively includes reducing the fares so that most people do not get priced out of using buses. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gowland. Councillor Mike Pringle.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to welcome the plan, but I do want to highlight a couple of things. Firstly, as the plan set out its opening gambit, there are priority areas which the 10-year vision is built around. I think we need to acknowledge, and I know you'll agree with me, Ben, that our ability to achieve this 10-year vision is going to be hugely influenced by some of the major infrastructure projects for which we've been promised funding by government. So the fact that last week's IOP announcement did not guarantee the funding for local rail projects namely the Maid Marian and the Robin Hood line, is deeply concerning to me and obviously residents within these areas. And I'm going to make no excuses about being parochial here. For my residents, Ollerton, we need that connectivity. And frankly, after years of underinvestment, we deserve it. I'm going to be like a dog with a bone with this, Ben. I know you've hung your hat on your ability to use both your council and your MP's position to secure the best deals for the county, and I think largely you've been supported by myself and members accordingly. I'm asking you now in this chamber to guarantee me as a member for Ollerton that we will be securing the funding for the Robin Hood line to reopen over this term of your administration, because that local infrastructure is absolutely essential if you truly believe in this 10-year vision which you presented to us today. We need to be connected, our young people need to be connected, especially for further opportunity, and we need to be able to grow our local economy. As you say, we need to help everyone access the best of our beautiful Nottinghamshire. Can you make that commitment today, Leader, Ben, to me and to the people of Ollerton? Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Pringle. Councillor Steve Carr.
Thank you, Chair. Many of you will remember an actress from many years ago called Marlene Dietrich, and her line famous for was, "I want to be alone." Well, if she wanted to be alone, she should have gone to East Midlands Parkway railway station, which has just been picked to be the hub for HS2. After years of being promised by this government that that station would come to Towton to deliver the Towton master plan, which officers at Broxtowe, officers at Erewash, officers in this council have been working on for years. And what have we got? The promise that Towton will have a station, but first of all, you've got to find somebody in the private sector who are willing to give 50% of the cost of it. I have never heard of any rail project in this country, public rail project in this country, that has been part funded by the private sector. So excuse me if I'm a little bit concerned that we're actually going to get this. I am frustrated that this council spent £22 million on land at Towton on the promise from Boris Johnson that Towton would be the HS2 hub. So quite frankly, on page 80 of this report, you're going to have to rewrite that straight away, because it talks about the HS2 coming to Towton and it'll deliver thousands of new jobs. Yes, it will have done. And I know some people don't like HS2. I know there are people in this room that don't agree with HS2. But those people that live along the route have still got the sword of Damocles hanging over them, because they've been told, well, actually, no, we're still earmarking this land because we might change our minds in 10 or 15 years' time. So all those people along the route are still in doubt. For what? For absolutely no economic gain for Broxtowe, Ashfield, Erewash and parts of the city. Yes, but there's going to be high-speed connectivity to Nottingham and Derby, but I can bet you any money that it won't stop at Beeston. The train, it'll just go way straight through to Nottingham. Nothing for Broxtowe. So where are these jobs at Towton going to come from? Without HS2, that was the driver. That was the catalyst for these jobs and these houses to come to Towton. The actual return, economic return now, for investing in that site has probably gone down from 2.1 to 1.3. Who on earth in the private sector is going to invest in infrastructure, housing, industry at those levels? They are not. I know that a lot of you over that side are disappointed as well. But we were led to believe, well, I know you're not, Councillor, but you've got to explain to your residents why they've still got this sword of Damocles hanging over them. Yeah. What we've got to ask ourselves is, what are we going to do about it? Why should Broxtowe, for example, continue in the Development Corporation if we're going to get nothing out of it? Why should we spend £500,000 towards the Development Corporation if we're not going to get all this benefit? It's quite simple. It's public money. Why should we? Now, I know that somebody will stand up and say, oh, don't worry about it, everything's fine. But all I would say is, in the future, don't believe a word that the Prime Minister says to you. Because, quite frankly, he breaks that many promises, he could write a book on it. And this is one of them, but this is an important one. This is a hugely important one for the development of our county. And we have been let down. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carr. Councillor Gordon-Wheeler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let's get some positivity back into this debate, shall we? We'll try. Chairman, as Councillor Lawton said earlier on, we recognise the contribution of the entire workforce in this council, and this will be essential to successful delivery of the priorities set out in the new council plan. Councillor Lawton, Bruce also thanked our staff, rightly so. So if I may, just for a few moments, continue that theme. I want to pay particular attention to the work of the colleagues in the Chief Executive Department who sometimes get overlooked and don't recognise that they are absent from the plan. I want to pick out, if I may, Mr. Chairman, a few key services which will be critical to overall successful delivery of the plan. Not necessarily in particular order, but I'll start with the customer service team. Jonathan and I had the good fortune recently of having an online meeting with them. I'm completely blown away by what they do. Suspect some of you think they take calls from to do with highways, potholes, street lanterns, and so on and so forth. Lot more. Test and trace. They're looking to take on the completion of all test and trace for Nottinghamshire, taking 100% national delivery, training new test and trace track system, vaccinations, recruitment training, and all the winter pressures which we know come along this time of the year. We will be educating all councillors, including ourselves for that matter, Jonathan and I, in more detail on the work of the customer service team. So that's coming your way. Because they represent the front door of the council, Mr. Chairman, and it's often the first and most important point of contact our residents get from the council. Our frontline services rely on the work of business support colleagues to enable them to focus on the care and support of some of the most vulnerable customers. The work of the health and safety team. You've all had the opportunity recently to download the app, and I hope you do take up that opportunity to download the app.
I think that's the lot.
And they continue to be crucial in working across the council to keep people safe and identify new standards to reflect the changing way people work in the future. The financial support managers they receive to ensure the services can be agreed within the budgets, and we spoke about the budgets earlier on, and I'm sure we will later again. The central task performed by colleagues in the Business Service Centre of paying people correctly and on time. Delivery of leadership and workforce development programmes to support and enable employees to maximise their contributions. That's just a flavour, Mr. Chairman, but I hope the whole council gets the idea. A huge, huge thank you to all our workforce. And we will continue to thank them. The plan's evolving and their contributions will be invaluable. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Wheeler. Councillor John Wilmot.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Really, Boris could not have delivered it better, with the ambitions high on the agenda, but will they be delivered? It is indeed a far-reaching 10-year vision, with your plan over the next 4 years a very challenging proposal. Your first observation of the HS2 was to see the development of new infrastructure projects. Well, some of that will now not be delivered. You seem to say you will focus over the next 10 years on improving the health and well-being of our communities. Well, I hope you do better than your government. In the last 10 years, obesity rising, more children living in poverty, fuel poverty on the rise, food banks having to support more families, universal credit system forcing people into more poverty, and problems for many getting to see a doctor. You say you want to grow the economy and improve living standards. All the government has done is let the cost of fuel, gas and electricity spiral out of control for our people, with many losing their jobs with the utility companies. You say you want to reduce the county's impact on the environment, and yet your government over the country are expecting councils to build an enormous amount of houses on greenbelt land because all the brownfield sites have already been built on, many without the infrastructure required. That is not improving the environment. Finally, you say you want to help everyone access the best of Nottinghamshire. Can I say the best of Nottinghamshire is being built on over the next few years, and the price of visitors' attractions are prohibiting to many of our poorer families. Mr Chairman, everything this authority does to improve the lives of our residents will get support from this side, but we shall be scrutinise everything you do in the vision of yours, in this vision of yours, so get it right. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Wilmot. Councillor Keith Girling.
Can I raise a point of order just quickly? This is the first time I've sat down here for a long time. I'm usually at the bank, and I have to say there's an awful lot of noise coming from people when other people are talking, and I think it's very disrespectful.
No, it's all right. Carry on, Councillor Girling.
No doubt you're about to.
I won't go into some... Chairman, I like this plan. And one of the reasons I like this plan is because the priorities are the priorities of the people of Nottinghamshire. And I also, like Councillor Pringle, going to be like a dog with a bone. And that's another reason why I like this plan, because it's set out clear objectives, and it's going to show, and we're going to be accountable for delivering them. So absolutely, and that's why it's been written in the way it has, so we can benchmark and we can follow how we progress. It's also very ambitious, and I'm sure some of us have heard before, you know, reach for the stars and you'll get to the moon. Always go higher, always aim higher, always have more aspiration. And we've heard some of the comments there. I think negative Nancy is the way I'd describe it. So I like this plan. It's flexible, and as things change, what's wrong with saying negative Nancy? Was that? Oh, put your complaint in later. I'm sure the monitoring officer will like it. You know, but the thing about this plan is it's flexible as well, and it can change.
Can we have some order, please? Now, there has been some muttering from the other side, but not as loud as the muttering that's coming from this side. And for Councillor Carr, I'm speaking, please.
Negative Nancy, homophobic? Yes. Okay.
Well, I thought Nancy was a girl's name.
Yeah, well, you're not me, thankfully. Thankfully, okay. So I like this plan, Ben, because it's flexible. You know, and it means it can adapt and adjust to how the priorities of Nottinghamshire adjust and change as well. Because we all know the biggest influence in this plan has been COVID. And COVID is going to come to an end. We don't know the impact of things like long COVID yet, but this plan is there so that we can adapt and adjust to see how that is actually impacted on it. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Girling. Councillor Drosny.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm not sure I dare follow that as one of the official Nancies in this room, but we'll park that, Councillor Girling. I'll deal with that with the monitoring officer, actually. It's a very, very offensive derogatory term. And I'll give you this opportunity through the Chairman for you to withdraw that. I assume you choose not to. Thank you. Okay. I suggest you stop repeating it. Well, perhaps your ignorance on the issue is really part of the overt problem. But I think there's a flagrant disregard for standards in terms of misogyny. I mean, you dare wear a white ribbon today and then throw comments around like that in this chamber that are homophobic.
Councillor Drosny, you're getting up to speak about the plan. Could I ask you to use your time, your 5 minutes, to speak on what you've got? If you have a complaint to make about a fellow councillor, then I suggest you make it to the monitoring officer.
I will, Chairman, but I think it's a shame you bang the gavel at me rather than the members in this chamber who speak with such disrespect about other members. Mr. Chair, do you know what? I'm absolutely disgusted. I'm absolutely disgusted I mean, last week we had the Conservatives saying about councillors they shouldn't be playing in big boy politics, and now we have the Deputy Leader of Newark and Sherwood Councillor, a committee chairman here, calling members Nancy's in this chamber, and you bang the gavel at me. It's an absolute outrage. It's a homophobic slur, and as an openly gay councillor, I take enormous offence at it, and I take even more offence that you didn't stop him and bang the gavel at me. It's an outright offensive, disgusting remark, and I asked the member to take it back, and you bang the gavel at me.
Councillor Zadodny, thank you for your remarks. As I've suggested earlier, if you wish to take a formal complaint to the Monitoring Officer, please do so and continue with your comments on the Nottinghamshire plan. Councillor Girling, do you have a point of order?
Thank you, Chairman. I've just had the dictionary definition of it sent to me by, well, given to me by Councillor Taylor there. I use the word negative Nancy because it's actually on Facebook and it's a jokey thing, and it's about people being negative, and the person's called Nancy on it. However, and it's the person's called Nancy. However, in terms of this, it's used as a deflammatory term, and I apologise. That is not the intent I gave. It's because actually on Facebook there's a thing called Negative Nancy, and it's jokes about people that are being negative. So I do apologise if I've given any offence. I did not mean it. I would never use the word Nancy if anybody that was of a different sexual orientation to me. It's not in my vocabulary. That's why I used it, so I do apologise.
Mr Chairman, I'll accept that apology in the spirit it's given, and I'll draw a line under the matter. Thank you. And I thank Councillor Girling for rising so quickly to retract his statement. Mr Chairman, I was rising with some positivity. Firstly, to thank the officers for the work that they did with opposition members, to include them in the feedback, and particularly to Derek for making sure that he made time for members of the Independent Alliance so that he could brief us fully on the report that came back. I do feel that the reporting back ought to be more regularly than annually, and I appreciate that actually, as Councillor Waters said, there's a huge number of parallel delivery and finance plans that need to sit underneath all of this. And one will assume that they come to regular scrutiny updates after May next year, or policy committee, or the various appropriate committees. But I think we need to benchmark those and start having them in more regularly than annually, because there's such a huge amount of work in here. Mr Chairman, for fear of upsetting my new alliance group, I will quickly correct Councillor Carr, who made a terrible mistake in his first speech. I forgive him. It was in fact Greta Garbo. It wasn't. Everything else he said was absolutely factually accurate. But on that, on film buffery, I think we win just a little. But everything else he said was absolutely right. And I think, Mr Chairman, the biggest change that we need to see that's in these pages is the economic levelling up. And I saw Councillor Bradley writing furiously when Councillor Carr was speaking. But this is not a time for celebrating the crumbs left from the picnic that the western leg of HS2's got. We need to go in and back very strongly for the East Midlands. And the fundamental problem with HS2 is you either do it or you don't. You don't do the western leg but not the eastern leg, because levelling up becomes even more out of kilter. And the problem there is that as Councillor Carr says, we've spent £22.5 million from this council acquiring land at Tote and working with senior partners in other authorities. And the fact that the private sector investment is not there is a real point of concern. And I suspect that Councillor Bradley is going to say it's fine because it can come from Section 106 funding. But Section 106 is predicated on the land values going up because Toton becomes a big hub. So although that might be true to a point, it still will leave an enormous gap. And I think what this needs to recognise, because there's some distrust, I guess, because of the way the communications happened, that we recognise there's still going to be a problem around Toton, there's still going to be a problem around the finances, and that all of us think, whether you like HS2 or not, if the Birmingham to Manchester legs getting it, then our bit needs it as well. We can't be put even more out of kilter. So I guess at the right point to the right committee, this needs addressing really strongly. And I know we've got further questions on it later. And I know the leader of the council is going out to bat in Parliament for this. But perhaps he needs some more practice with someone bowling at him, because other areas have got some cash and we haven't got that amount of cash. So for Nottinghamshire to do well economically, we need to recognise this better. We need the delivery plan more stable and delivered on, because nothing else can follow if we don't get the finances. If people don't get the jobs, if we don't get the income here, then nothing else can be right. So I hope the council leader is taking those bits on board and can come back with some reassurance for members who have grave concerns about it. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Drosney. Councillor Michael Payne.
Thank you very much, Mr Chairman. Can I first of all commend the leadership of the County Council and the officers of the County Council for lighting the building orange tonight in support of survivors of domestic abuse and domestic violence. The plan itself obviously makes reference to the authority leading efforts to tackle domestic abuse on page 13, and obviously we stand here today on White Ribbon Day when the central message of that campaign is about all men can, in light of obviously the awful events with Sarah Everard and indeed others that have brought to the forefront of everybody's mind gender-based violence, particularly from men against women, but of course there are a significant number of men who are victims of domestic abuse as well, and colleagues should be commended for their efforts tonight in lighting the building orange and the references that are made in the plan. I just wanted to make two specific points about the plan, which I don't have any intention of being dragged into a debate about the integrated rail plan. There'll be plenty of debate about that, and given the fact that it's a 30-year plan, there'll be another opportunity to debate those issues. My question is to the leader or deputy leader. There was obviously great store put in the survey around residents giving their views to the County Council, and I think I was right in saying the deputy leader said that the views of residents of Nottingham should drive this plan. Obviously references the Big Knot survey, the business survey, and indeed the survey that took place with young people. I do note there was a report back to the Policy Committee on the 14th of October that makes brief reference, I think, to indicative results of the Big Knot survey. I hope, given that the leader of the County Council made transparency the watchword of his administration when he took control of this council, that all elected members will now receive a full picture in terms of the survey results, so that we can all across this chamber see exactly what residents said. I know there was quite a comprehensive report that presumably Derek and colleagues gave to the Policy Committee, but it was a very indicative report, and I think it would be really helpful if every single elected member in this chamber could see all the specific detail that came back in relation to the Big Knot survey. And the second point I'd just make in support of what I think Councillor Waters said earlier in the debate is, first of all, not to be churlish about this, to commend both officers and the administration for being ambitious in setting out a 10-year plan. I'm not going to comment on whether I agree or disagree with all the points in it. I think Councillor Gurley makes a good point. It's your prerogative to set out a plan, and I think I've said here before, you'll be held to account on that plan. But and the other thing that should be said is officers should be commended for, after an 18-month horrific period of keeping the show on the road. I was at the Fire Awards last night, and our public servants, I think, across the city and county have been exemplary throughout COVID. For them now to still have the foot on the gas in terms of an ambitious plan that's been set out, whether I agree or disagree with the points in it, I'm not churlish enough to stand here and not say thank you, Anthony, to you and every single officer of the County Council for, I'm sure you will be putting your full effort into delivering this plan. But I think Councillor Waters did make a good point. Maybe not for now, the debate in the chamber today, but I think in quick order, the administration does need to set out who is going to take a lead on these ambitions, what's the timescale for delivering them, and what is the measurement for success. I know this is about setting out an ambition, and colleagues should be commended for bringing that forward, but I really do think we need that so that we here on the other side of the chamber, as you would expect, can hold you to account in terms of the ambition that you've set out on behalf of residents. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. Councillor Kate Fole.
Thank you, Chairman. And thanks from me too for lighting the building to raise awareness around gender-based violence. Clearly, it really is preventable, as is laid out in some of the literature we've got today. So it's good to see that we're getting very much involved in that. So thank you. So to the plan, the ambition of creating a healthier, more prosperous and greener Nottinghamshire is good, and I doubt that there's a single member officer in this chamber who'll argue that we really all want and need that. And after all, much of what we have in this plan was actually in Labour's manifesto, so well done. And we consulted on this too, and came up with some similar things. So we will be supporting this today, but, and as others have said, we will be holding you to account on how and when we get there, and how many of our residents, communities and local businesses really will benefit from the making of this plan. So we do have some concerns, but we will support it. A key disappointment, and this has been raised by other members, although the report goes on to reference reducing inequalities on page 58, there's not really any further mention of how we go about identifying and working with those specific communities which are in need of more of our help and support. Just for an example, actually I picked this up from the conference too, Bruce. I heard that if you live in an area of deprivation in this country, you're twice as likely to die of COVID than if you reside in a better off area. So the question following from that is, to what extent are people living in those poorer communities in this county represented among the 12,000 residents who responded to the survey, and are we really reaching out to them? And I can see you've made some strides in this, but I think we need to do more. And another question in terms of representation, I was particularly to take the pre-report as an example. I know we have a question on this later, but where will the local voice be in shaping that? What I'd like to aspire to in 10 years' time is a county with much less inequality. A county where good health, wealth and prosperity are distributed much more widely, and the extreme deprivation we know exists in some of our communities, mainly but not exclusively in the North Nottinghamshire, is gone, or at least going. That is real levelling up. The other worry I have is that we consider 12,000 responses as good. Yeah, it's better than in previous years, and I know officers and councillors have done an awful lot of work on this, so thank you. I know it's been hard. But 12,000 responses does not represent real engagement of our communities that have, and let's face it, they pulled together so magnificently during the pandemic. I think we could work on that. On page 90, there's a paragraph with the title Get Involved, and goes on to suggest 3 ways. Contact your local councillor, join our citizens panel and sign up for updates. That really doesn't reach out to people in a way that I think is going to work. Contact your local councillor seems more to be an invitation to report a pothole, not the offer of proper conversation about what our residents are really looking for. I can't see many people having a time or energy to join a panel either. We need to go out to where they are to have conversations on their terms. I know that's down to us too, and I think most of us are doing that. Okay. So I'm really glad that you are intending to include residents in further discussions. So please really mean it and do it. It really doesn't feel to me at the moment, although I know there's been more strides towards it, that proper engagement and consultation with our residents is actually in our DNA. Just to give you an idea, I know there are some councils where members will not sign off a policy or a project unless there is clear and extensive evidence of consultation. Perhaps that's a suggestion for the new cabinet system. And there is so much existing data that we can already use. We already have information from Governor and Trust Board meetings, parish council meetings, service user feedback, casework, loads and loads more. This kind of information could all be fed into the process, and people could feel part of the planning process in the way they really are not now. Let's make better use of what we already know about our wonderfully diverse communities. And at the County Council Network meeting that we've talked about before, at the weekend, Alan Melbourne gave a presentation entitled The Role of Counties in Leading Recovery, Delivery and Renewal. I think it's on YouTube. It might be worth some more of us watching it. In it, he argued that change has to be owned and by local people, and he identifies the problem, and this is a quote from Alan Milburn: people who are the beneficiaries of the services are not the architects. So in other words, if we ask people what they want, really listen, without any preconceptions, and take account of their views when making policy and designing services, we'll end up with public services fit for the future, a more engaged community, and a better, stronger and more inclusive society, and less inequality. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I think I might start putting Councillor Cotty in charge of the council shovel, and if you see somebody digging, just to take it off them straight away, to be honest. But no, I'll just move straight to Councillor Carr's comments about the railway integration, obviously much mentioned in this report. It's fair to say that we were promised a first-class ticket, and this area has ended up with a second-class ticket on a replacement bus service. That's where we've ended up in Nottinghamshire, and I seriously hope that Councillor Bradley, when you are championing our cause within Parliament based on these priorities, that you remind Boris and his colleagues, particularly if he's got the ear of Santa, that places like Nottinghamshire want some presence as well. He doesn't just stop. And that's kind of where we're looking at. And that kind of moves to the theme of my comments on this. I noticed that much of the report and much of this document is set at a very high level, with very limited amounts of it where there's actual targets, timescales, stuff that we can hold you to account as an opposition. Because, as Councillor Payne quite rightly said, it's not for us to set the priorities. You're running the council, and it's our job to hold you to account. But the way you've written this report makes it very difficult for us to do that, because there isn't any hard and fast. How are you going to do things? When within these 10 years do you intend to tick off some of these ambitions? And frankly, we're not setting a high level of standard so far. So we move to the bullet point where it says strengthening businesses and creating more good quality jobs. Well, I hope our care staff aren't listening, because we don't pay them for the travel between documents. And our service providers, which we contract to, people are out the house for 12 hours a day, but they only get paid for the hours they're actually caring for people in the homes. They haven't got a teleportation device. They can't get from one door to the other, stuck in traffic, while they're not getting paid. And that needs looking at. The schools and education. The schools and education bullet point.
I do. Councillor Hollister just said... Sorry. Councillor Hollister just said, I know he said it in the last meeting as well, that we don't pay our staff for travelling between, but we do pay travel time, and we also ensure working time directories on hours, and we expect all our providers to do the same as well. So you're wrong there.
I'm not wrong, but we'll move on.
Okay.
We'll move on. Ask any care staff who works for any private employer within Ashfield or Nottinghamshire what the case is, and they'll tell you. Right. So schools and education. Schools and education. Primary schools across the county are over capacity. Many schools are already taking over their maximum 10% thresholds for classrooms. Many of my constituents have to travel out of district to the other side of town just to get their kids into the primary school. Children and Youth Centre services. Don't tell people enough weight about that, Chairman. Apparently our Sure Start Centre wasn't valued, and we had to close it. By the way, a purpose-built Sure Start Centre, and thank you, Mr Tony Blair, for providing the funding, and thank you for the last Labour administration for making sure it happened. But what actually happened under the Tory watch is, let's create a lovely hub in Hucknall. So if you don't drive, a single mum or dad, centre of Uthwaite, who wants to learn how to cook and clean, who wants to learn how to bring their kid up, how are they going to get there? And the purpose-built Sure Start building, which can't be used for anything else because it was a purpose-built children's centre, we've been sold down the river. So these are the kind of things that actually we'll be holding you to account on. Disposal and recycling of household waste. I think we've let Veolia out of control. You know, they're leaving their doors open, letting flies and smells come out. We'll grant them permission for another one without making sure they've already ticked off the boxes there. When we hold the recycling review, like I've said in my last conversation, they hold a big review. Hours and hours of our waste disposal staff's team and collection authorities' time, just to include bottle tops. What about pizza boxes? What about shredded paper? What about other things like food waste? Why aren't we setting higher standards? And I hope it ain't going to take 10 years to solve these things. Public transport. If you live in Stanton Hill or Carsick, you're more likely to see Lord Lucan riding Shareguard on the bus. I mean, it comes once an hour. We want to be encouraging people into our town centres like Mansfield. Because let's be honest,
30 seconds, Councillor Hollis.
The biggest town centre for much of our town now is Sutton and Mansfield. We want to be encouraging people to shop, but if they haven't got a bus to get there, how are we going to do it? So, rest assured, it is your plan to draw up, and I welcome much of what's written there. I wish it was at a more frontline level than a higher level, but you've written it, and you can rest assured that if you tick everything off on here, I'll be saying thank you very much. But unfortunately, based on the Conservatives' national and local record, it's difficult to trust what's in this document.
Time, Councillor Hollis. Councillor Samantha Deakin.
Thank you, Chair. Just before you all start getting a little bit antsy, I'm not on about the railway or anything else. So mine's just one little quick point for everybody to take into account. We talk about the deprived area and that we've got some of the worst in England. So with that comes the lack of internet access, which I think we forget about because with the COVID pandemic, everybody's moved to doing much more stuff online. But within my work, particularly, I have an awful lot of my residents who still aren't online. So throughout this document, we talk about communication with communities and how to reach them. All I want is that you all to just bear it in mind that we're not everybody's online, that we can't just do everything online or follow the social media page or look at Twitter or, you know, there's massive swathes of my community that just aren't on there. And we forgot about that over the last 18 months as more and more things had to be digital to keep us all safe. But we can't leave those people out because their voices are just as important. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Deakin. Councillor Sheila Place.
Thank you, Chairman. There's an awful lot in your plan and I wish you're looking achieving half at least. But can I make a plea? You've got here, improved bus services. Can you look at the ones in Bassetlaw? We get a daily report on which buses won't be running, and some of them are the ones that only run once an hour. It's a long time for people to hang about if they've only gone for a bit of shopping. And other thing was cycling and walking routes. We get an awful lot of cyclists up our way. And they don't just ride 2 abreast, they ride 3 or more abreast in a group of 20 or more. So, you know, I'm just making a plea that we do need it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Place. Councillor John Clark.
Excuse me. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I welcome the plan, thoroughly welcome it, because it's something to start working on. We know the meat's not there, and Jason's already mentioned we want some more detail, obviously finance and all the rest of the things there, but welcome it. I mean, it's not perfect, but what is perfect? And I can't say, you know, there's lots of things in there that we could all give individual and local attention to. We must work together, and sometimes we've got to pull the attack dogs back from probably opposition this side, in government or wherever. We've got to really work together to make it work. That's all councils, and it's not just, and it's probably, Ben, when you're doing this and you're fronting this, please make sure that all council, we're all involved with it. It's not just about the Tory party, it's not about the Labour Party, it's not about the New Alliance or anything like that. We're all involved with it, and there's a lot of people out there willing to make the COP work, because COP, although it's criticised, officers work throughout the night, for weeks before, weeks after, to try and get something and some sense in it. And I see today on the internet that Pakistan now has got to close its businesses down for 2 days a week because of the smog. One, they can't, it sounds like I've got some of that, but it's mass. But you know, what attack would that have on the economy if we had to start closing down our places like that? I think lots of the questions are very relevant and very important, as Tom's raised and other people, but that's the sort of committee work that you need to do here. What I'd like to see is it reported back a lot quicker. You know, I think is it down for a year, Ben, on this one? I'd like to see it, you know, at least 6 months, but hopefully under the new cabinet system, with a really strong scrutiny system, we can start to put some meat on these bones and make it work. Excuse me. It does need a lot of work on how we're going to do it, the finance, what role do we all play? And I mean, not just a role of individual politicians, but the roles of people there. Because when I brought that petition in earlier, it was a young child that came up and wanted wanted that crossing there. And there's lots of other ideas right the way across the spectrum now, and we've got to be able to take it on. It's a massive job to do, but the message is clearly there's no doubt in that, and using not this alliance, but an alliance does need an alliance of people. It needs an alliance of goodwill in it. Yes, we'll have our arguments over it, but we've got to make it work. At least now we've got something to hold people accountable. We've got something we can work on. And some, you might say, well, okay, you're a group, and the independents or whatever. You're a group. Well, that's a section. Can you do some work on that? We're not going to be able to achieve all of it, but we certainly can achieve something. We'll achieve nothing if we're constantly falling out. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. I have 3 more speakers indicated they wish to speak, and Councillor Bradley has then to sum up. I propose that after the vote on this motion that we will break for lunch. Councillor Sam Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 1 in 3 people surveyed said that supporting our economy is a priority for them, and I totally agree with that. But, Mr. Chairman, we can only have a booming economy here in Nottinghamshire by attracting businesses and employers to our county. And the key to that is delivering a skilled workforce, and a good education is the way of unlocking that. That is why I welcome this plan for Nottinghamshire, Mr. Chairman, as it focuses hugely on the importance of this council giving Nottinghamshire children and young people access to learning settings rated good and outstanding. Page 71 of the plan is critical and explains how this council will focus on delivering that. I agree, Mr. Chairman, with all the 6 points on that page, and I'm pleased we are already taking actions against a number of those. For example, we have addressed the projected deficit of secondary school places in Gedling by investing and expanding 2 of Carlton's schools, both of which are rated good or outstanding. We are investing in additional SEND school places and hope to receive more money from government for this as a result of a letter sent to the Department of Education from the CYP Committee Chairman earlier last month. And we have invested over £7 million in our maintained schools buildings to improve their conditions this year, and over £5 million has been allocated next year. These steps are already helping to ensure a good education is accessible by all, and we at this council will continue to build on that with the help of this plan. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Tracy Taylor.
Thank you, Chairman. I didn't have a prepared speech, but I'm prompted to respond to some of the inaccuracies that Councillor Hollis articulated. If Councillor Hollis would like to list for me those primary schools who are all so excessively overpopulated in the classrooms, I'd be glad to receive that list. I know it suits you better when you're grandstanding in this chamber to make broad brush statements that you're never then required to substantiate. So on this occasion, I'm inviting you to substantiate it. And if those problems are real, I'll look at them. At this point in time, I think you're talking nonsense. I realise that we will never agree on children's centres because Councillor Hollis is wedded to the notion that buildings create best service delivery. Buildings do not deliver services, people do. The children's centre service has been reshaped under the last administration. There is work ongoing. We will probably see changes, and I think there is a question later in the agenda, and we'll talk about children's centres then with Councillor Carr. And finally, I know it's really difficult if you don't have any inclination to invest in all of the good work and the ambitions that this plan puts forward for us. And I know that you ask time and again, how? If you tell me exactly how to do it, then we can do it. So I'm making a pledge today that when Haynes print the manual on how to deliver local plans, I will make sure you get the very first copy. Thank you, Chairman.
The final speaker is Councillor Prudo-Horan. Purdue, sorry. It's all right. Been a long day already.
I'll forgive you. I forgive you. Mr. Chairman, thank you. First of all, can I crave your indulgence? I'd like to apologise to Councillor Bradley, Councillor Lawton and Councillor Barnfather. Perhaps in an earlier item, I should have acknowledged their help and assistance and support during the summer when when I was distracted from when this consultation was going on. I was distracted with something else going on in my life. So thank you for all your help. I have no argument, Mr. Chairman, with my colleagues on the other side of this chamber. They still remain good friends of mine. But also, I'd like to say that I've been extremely touched by the very warm welcome that my new colleagues have given me over the past few weeks. And I have to say, and thank you, Tom, for your kind words earlier on, I feel like a young Wayne Rooney without the money, of course. But I feel like a young Wayne Rooney, extricated from his beloved Everton, the Blues. And of course, Alex Ferguson took him into a successful Man United team. And he went into a team that completely dominated what they were involved with. So I'm looking forward. They've already proven that they have dominated Ashfield, and branching out, I'm absolutely sure that we will be dominating Nottinghamshire politics. And I know that my colleague, Councillor Smith, has perhaps felt a bit of that when an independent councillor recently got 66% of the Blidworth and South Lainsworth vote.
Am I losing the point?
So forgive me, Mr. Chairman. I'll now direct my comments
well,
to
you've got
to
2.5 minutes left.
And it is actually very short, because I noticed that my question is question 11, so I'm not very confident that I'll be able to ask it later on. But on 86, page 86, or page 32 of the report, we have second paragraph down, reduce our waste generation. And it goes on to talk about household waste and recycling centres. And I'm disappointed that the opportunity wasn't taken to commit the approval decision that was taken on the 1st of October 2020 to ensure that there will be a new recycling centre in Rushcliffe. And perhaps I'll get a full answer. But I do actually agree with my colleague, Councillor Waters, that it lacks detail. And on page 87, in the shaded box, the second line down, more of the county's waste is recycled. It's been said before, I will repeat it, that I don't believe, Councillor Girling, that you've quite reached for the stars on this occasion. It has been very watered down. It is very, very bland in parts, and I think we could have had more ambition. And I will certainly, along with my colleagues, with respect, I will be holding your feet to the fire before long. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I have made copious notes, and I will endeavour to answer all the questions that opposition colleagues in particular have raised. Thank you to colleagues on this side for their support and their work in putting this plan together. Grateful to the one or two members who actually mentioned the plan, which was really, really positive. I assume that because most of the dialogue is about HS2, that those people are very supportive of the plan. And we'll come on to some of that perhaps as I go through. Councillor Creamer, yes, we will get updates on progress. Yes, we will come back annually with KPIs, and we will make sure it's measured, and we'll do that obviously through the scrutiny process all the time, so it won't just be a one-off thing, it will be very much ongoing. We'll touch on HS2 through perhaps mainly on Councillor Carr's comments later on, but I'll come on to that. Councillor Doddy, the Health and Wellbeing Roadshow is an example of that continued engagement, I hope, and very welcome. Thank you for your input. And health does take a huge priority in this document, not least because of your vociferous passion for it. Councillor Waters, as I've said, we'll come back on with reports on data and on targets. On disadvantaged and disadvantaged areas, that levelling up agenda is clear and named in this document, as well as the national agenda. We're not waiting to see what government is going to do on that. We are trying to shape it. And that's certainly what I'm trying to do through this dual role, to make sure that our plans for delivering on that are what form the basis of the government's plans. And in due course, when the white paper is published, I think that we will see that in the shape of it. Councillor Gowland, on buses, we've just submitted, I think, nearly an £80 million plan on buses, 84 officers are telling me, for a new bus innovation strategy to help to improve our local transport services, to help look at what innovation, what investment, what changes we could make, and I will obviously be pushing the government to secure that funding, but we are working very hard on public transport. Councillor Pringle, those IRP projects were named in the document, Maid Marian Line, Robin Hood Line. Michael Gove gave the assurance this week that those projects that were named will be funded and delivered, or are funded. The Treasury obviously has an envelope of funding that it gives to the IRP, and we will be pushing them to make sure that they are funded. There are processes to follow. But I think it's worth saying that outside of Nottinghamshire, there are very few projects on that scale that were actually named in that document. It is a document that names projects of national and regional significance. There weren't many small local projects like the Robin Hood Line that were named in that, and that's not a coincidence. And I will come back to that, no doubt, many times over the coming months. Councillor Carr, it's already been pointed out, the mistake around the Marlene Dietrich. I think her phrase was actually, come up and see me sometime. Maybe you should, so that we can go through what's actually in this document, because you don't seem to have read it. Parkway is not the destination. Parkway is where the new line will stop. The destination is Nottingham and Derby, and as a result, the journey times between Nottingham and Birmingham will fall from 72 minutes to 26. That brings the whole of the West Midlands into commuting distance from Nottingham and South Nottinghamshire. It connects our economies. It brings the West Midlands closer to us economically, and that is hugely significant for our whole region. You say we don't have Toten. We do have Toten. There is a commitment to Toten within it. You say that the private sector don't fund transport. That is demonstrably nonsense. Section 106, still private contributions to HS2 are happening in other parts of the country.
I didn't say transport, Councillor. I said they don't build railway stations.
What are they doing in Birmingham?
No.
As we speak. There are private contributions to HS2 in other parts of the country,
not
and there are projects elsewhere. Our Development Corporation, which is also named in terms of acceleration of this plan, the Development Corporation will be accelerated, and that will help us to work with private sector funders and to bring investment into our region, not just on that site, but on our Freeport site too. He says it does nothing for Broxtowe, which is incredible, given that outside of major city centres, I doubt there is a borough anywhere in the country that gets as much from this as Broxtowe does. The Robin Hood Line, Maid Marian Line link people to Broxtowe, commitments to tram and road infrastructure, the Midland Main Line that goes through Beeston that will be upgraded. He said nothing is benefiting Beeston. The Midland Main Line is Beeston's main rail connection to everywhere. So it is just untrue. And maybe we should have that conversation about what is in it. If there's nothing to welcome in this, I don't know what we're ever supposed to welcome, because this is a £13 billion commitment to our East Midlands transport infrastructure. 90% of that is in knots.
Councillor
And
Carr,
again, that is not a coincidence. It's because of the hard work we've done to make the case for it. So it's incredible that all we can muster off the back of a £13 billion investment is to whinge about it. But I will go and make sure that those projects are secured, and we will see the benefit for local residents. And I think the less that we'll no doubt continue to talk about it over the coming months, but it took my breath away, that particular speech. Councillor Wilmot, point out to him that it's Ashfield District Council who decide what gets built on in Ashfield, so I'll leave that with him. Councillor Drosny, you talked about annual reporting, and yes, as I've said, we will do that. We will have KPIs, but it's an ongoing piece of work. It's absolutely right. It will be done through those scrutiny committees, through Cabinet and other options as well, and members on this side will hold us to account, because many of those disadvantaged communities that have been mentioned in other places are now represented by Conservative councillors on this side. We will continue to fight for those communities and to level up, as it says throughout this document. I've touched on points on HS2, and I won't go back over it because it's incredibly frustrating. But colleagues up and down the council and at the County Council's conference just this week are jealous of the support that we have got in the East Midlands. The Sun described our region as the big winners from the Integrated Rail Plan, and again, that doesn't happen very often. I'm inclined to welcome it. Councillor Deakin, thank you for your very sensible and measured comments. It's very true that digital connectivity is hugely important in this, and we certainly intend, post-COVID, to make sure that we are engaging with residents in every possible way. Roadshows, perhaps, an example of how we're already seeking to do that, but we will be as inclusive as we possibly can. Councillor Payne, absolutely welcome your comments on violence and domestic abuse, totally support them, and I would note that that also is a key part of this plan. We do have, and we're digging down into the detailed responses and the data, and we're not just going to share that with colleagues, we're going to publish that so it's available for all of the public, and that consultation will be ongoing, as we've already discussed. So I welcome the positive words on officers and the delivery of the plan. We will seek to measure it, and we will make sure that we are held to account on it. Councillor Pringle says it's a dog with a bone. Perhaps this lays out what the bone should taste like, and now it's all of our responsibility to make sure we don't let it go, and we will seek to do that over the course of the coming months. Councillor Fole, again, appreciate the support. The cross-party nature of this is important. I think it's not a Conservative plan, it is a Council's plan, and the nature of how we tackle it and hold ourselves to account over it is important. We pick out priority areas of disadvantage within the document. We'll be publishing the data about how and why that comes to pass. I think we all know largely often where those areas are and what those areas need, but it's important that we properly evidence that. As I said, many of those areas are now represented over here too, so it's not just a case of opposition and administration, but all of us working to that goal. And I think that area of supporting disadvantaged and levelling up actually runs through all of these themes, whether it's job creation, transport connections, transforming children's services. All of those things are important to those most disadvantaged communities. And you mentioned making sure service users can build the services around their own image or their own version of what that should look like. And that's absolutely right. I would just point out that that's perhaps an issue of quality rather than quantity. When you look through our services, particularly social care, children's services, we actually, the service users are a tiny proportion of our county. And we need to make sure we have really high quality engagement with those people so that they can shape those services. That's perhaps less about numbers of people as a whole who don't often engage with some of those particularly challenging and sensitive services. Councillor Hollett, I think I've already covered points on KPIs. I think Councillor Elliott's corrected some of your comments. Councillor Taylor has corrected some of your comments. So I probably don't need to go over that. Other than to say we've had one of the biggest school building programmes ever over the last 4 years, and we continue to be committed to that. Youth services forms a central plank of our transformation in children's. It forms a central plank of our Economic Prosperity Committee discussions and of our devolution bid. Children's and youth services are absolutely at the forefront of what we're trying to achieve, and we are committed to doing that. I think, well, again, come back to the bus point, we've just submitted an £84 million plan to improve our buses. Councillor Place, the biggest subsidies in buses and transport services are in Bassett Law, so I think we do recognise the challenges that you lay out. And we've also secured funds for active travel. Officers are working on proposals around cycling and walking and how we can pull those things together. I think that's really important, and again, recognised in the plan. Councillor Clark, yes, we absolutely must work together. I'm really grateful for your support and for Michael and Gedling through our Economic Prosperity Committee and working together more closely to try and tie these services together. I'm grateful for those who are open with me in these conversations and where we have been able to work together, who then use that to try and improve things rather than sometimes using it against me. And I'm grateful, John, that you are a very constructive part of those conversations. I'm sure that we can work together on individual parts of this through that scrutiny process as well. And I think then, unless there's any more, Councillor Purdy-Horan, if it doesn't get an answer in person on waste later on, I know Councillor Clark has one for you. You'll get that in detail in writing, but we're in constant dialogue with Veolia, and we are not just looking at our recycling centres in Rushcliffe, but across the board to come up with a really holistic plan as to how we deliver that. Unless I have missed anybody, I think that is all of it. So it just leaves me, Mr Chairman, to say that I really welcome the publication of this plan. I welcome what sounds like at least a vast majority of support across this chamber today. Thank everybody who's been involved in putting it together. Hopefully we've managed to answer many of the queries, many of which will no doubt come up all the time forever as we continue to deliver on this plan to improve outcomes for residents in Nottinghamshire. And I thank everybody for their support today.
Thank you, Councillor Bradley. Can we move then to the vote? All those in favour? That is clearly carried. It is now 25 to 1. I propose that we don't return to the chamber any later than 25 to 2. Okay. And I will bang the gavel and start the meeting at 25 to 2.